you like the tie? That's what Francie, my producer, just said. She liked the tie. Very, very fancy tie. You know how old this tie is? 23 years old. And it's back in style, folks. It's back in style. If you wait long enough, everything comes back in style. And thank goodness, cable television has arrived. Maybe we'll be able to knock off those giants called broadcasters. I don't want to knock them off. I just want to take some of the arrogance out of them. And we're going to be talking to a guy who knows a lot about television, Mr. Mike Duffy, the pride of Grosse Pointe. And Michael will be my guest here at random. That's what you're tuned to, by the way. Well, congratulations. You survived another day. That's always good. You didn't get canned. By the way, I got to tell you something. You know, every once in a while, good things happen. And those of us in the media like the bad things. We always like Negative Approach. It's the name of a punk rock band, isn't it? Well, okay, they're all my crew. They're all punkers. They're all nodding yes. Well, anyway, the media likes to take the negative approach. But the other day, I came across a story about the Dearborn Bank and Trust. And I'm not going to mention any names. But it seems that somewhere along the line, someone in the bureaucracy of the bank was getting ready to let go an employee. And during this discussion, the president of the bank got a hold of the situation and said, wait a minute, now we all know what efficiency experts are, and evidently the person that was getting ready to put out this edict was an efficiency expert, someone who was, knew how to run a bank. And fortunately, Gene Weaver, the president of the bank, got a hold of something, and they got a hold of this report and said, wait a minute, this is all fine. And, it makes a lot of sense this way and that way, but does it make people sense to do what we're about to do? And everybody stopped and said, what do you mean? People sense, we're a bank. And he said, but that's the most important thing we have. And so before the do-gooders or the crazies were getting ready to, save a few bucks for the bank, somebody got some sense, and they turned around a decision. I congratulate the Dearborn Bank and Trust and Gene Weaver, their president, for having common sense. No pun intended. I'm glad I got that one out of the way. By the way, if you'd like to drop a note here at Group W at random, just pick up on the address that'll appear on your screen and drop me a card or a letter. Now, we're getting an awful lot of mail for Cleo, the astrologer. And quite frankly, if you would like Cleo to do a reading, and she's going to be back here in a short period of time, just drop a note to me and put on the envelope for Cleo. And we'll see that she does your reading on the air the next time we have her. Well, what do you think about what's going on the missile situation? You've been following that with the president and the MX. I had a visit from one of my students. This young man, Michael Kelly, was one of the brightest young men I've ever had in school. In fact, I think he was national champion of the games. You know, these games that they play, scholastic games like chess and everything. He was one of the national champions in social studies in the United States. He was a young man who has now spent one semester down at Texas A&M, where he's on a full-ride scholarship. I think it's a Leacher Scholarship Fellowship. He's already a junior. He's only been in the college one semester, and he's already a junior. He's a super bright guy, and he's studying aerospace, of all things. And I asked Mike, I said, what's going on in the missile crises? And here's one of the wisest young men I've ever met for his age. And Michael said, the media is misrepresenting what's going down. And he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, the president and the military are absolutely right. The Russians have an advantage. We're building in an advantage. And he said, I've analyzed this several times over. And this guy's pretty liberal. You know, he's a very liberal-minded young person. And he said, but in this instant, President Reagan is right, and the media in general, meaning those people that tend to give us our information, are misleading us. Well, I don't know. You want to believe Dan Rather? Fine. I'm only talking about a kid that I've known for 3 years and who happens to be one of the brightest young men I've ever had in class. Well, you think about that. Commercials. We got to do some, and then we got to get on with our guests, because I want to talk about the media to this man. Mike Duffy, the Detroit Free Press television critic, and a man who also probably knows more about punk rock than any man I know in Detroit. He may not admit to that, but we'll be right back after these announcements with Mr. Mike Duffy. Well, here we are demystifying television. Duffy, this is cable television. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's a little better than the amateur hour.
A little better than the amateur hour. But the amateur hour was always fun.
They're a lot of fun. You can do whatever you want.
Exactly. And you know, when I told Mike Duffy, who is big honcho down there at the Detroit Free Press,
big honcho, yes,
that liberal rag, as I like to refer to it as, Michael was chortling. He said, "How many times did you play this show, right?"
This show, you play it 5 times?
5 times a day.
I mean, really, it's...
Were you ready for that?
No, I'm not. I don't think anyone should have to look at either of us 5 times a day.
And listen, any man from Grosse Pointe who would wear a green sweater on the Russ Gibb telephone... No, we don't have a telephone yet. We're getting one. You get a little mixed up.
The pink shirt.
Oh, you got a pink shirt on.
Yeah, see?
Do you have loafers on?
No, I don't. I'm going raggedy here.
You're raggedy on the bottom here.
No, I do this for fun. I live in Grosse Pointe. I love Grosse Pointe, but I did not grow up there. But I think it is important to realize that real preppies and fake preppies, and these days there's a lot of fake preppies running around with
How do you know a real preppy?
They usually don't wear this stuff.
You know,
they look more comfortable.
By the way, Group W has the cable system out there.
I know.
Along with the
I'm hooked up to that cable
system.
Are you really?
Yes. Do you like the programming?
Sure. I mean, what's to not like about it? Because the Free Press pays for it. So.
Oh, they pay for it? Oh, that's
not
not
expense.
Bad.
You know,
No,
that's what I get to expense.
We don't have MTV here yet.
Oh, I love that. MTV is outrageous.
But that's the music. We're going to get it.
MTV is going to be it's like my one best hope for loosening up the radio market in this city.
The radio market is terrible.
Well, if we're talking about FM rock and roll, which is basically what I'm talking about, excuse me, it's sort of been stultified for about the last 5-6 years.
Last week, did you hear the guy when he left ABX?
Oh, yes.
Did you hear that?
Yes, saying that I'm not going to go out playing Saga or some jive like that.
My kids in school came in and they were raving about the programming.
On ABX that last couple days.
Last few days.
Sure, they were playing all kinds of stuff.
They're nuts. They're nuts.
At the FM rock station?
Yeah, right.
It's because there's so much money to be made. They have gotten into this formula mentality, and it's worked for them. A Riff, for instance, which is an ABC corporate entity, they make a lot of money for them, but they just play it safe. It's not where music's happening today. I mean, they have become, instead of leaders, FM rock used to be the leader.
That's right. 10,
12 years ago. It's now the followers.
Yeah.
The first place I heard the Go-Go's or anything that was even remotely commercially new wave was on CK or on one of the black stations in town.
Yeah. Mojo is the most interesting
best DJ in town right now in terms of playing interesting new music.
Do you know who had the first punk show in Detroit?
It's probably you, right?
That's right. You might as well.
Gee, I took that cue real well.
You did it well. Were you on the show? I can't remember.
I might have been. I think I was. Was that the one on Sunday nights? Or?
Yeah, the one on the 25th hour, we would call, about 3 or 4 years ago. We were playing the Clash. And I used to bring a guy, a fellow who was a tap dancer, which I used to think was great, a tap dancer on a radio show. Now, you haven't heard that since the amateur hour.
Well, at least there's some sound you can hear. I mean,
are you the radio editor, too?
No. That's Kim Herron.
Kim
is our jazz writer. We have all these mixed jobs.
You really do television.
Television. I get paid to watch most of that junk, or all that junk, actually. It's not, I really like television, but some of it can get a little much. When you have to watch something like the Dukes of Hazzard as opposed to going home and sitting down watching Hill Street Blues or MASH.
Yeah, that Hill Street Blues is an interesting show.
I love that show.
Do you think that TV locally, that they're arrogant? I mean, the local broadcast stations?
I think it's easy to... I don't know where the arrogance is at. You're talking about, when we're talking about network affiliates, and basically when you're talking about
Channel 4, 2, and 7.
The network affiliates, there's so much money that they're making right now, or to be made. The pressure on the people that run those stations to generate ratings, especially in their news programming, is so great that I think there is a tendency to develop a certain type of arrogance. But when I've dealt with them, most of those people are real professionals, but what they're doing sometimes I think they don't always feel wonderful about.
You mean they question it too?
In their off-the-record moments, yes. They will say, you're right, sometimes we play too much to a ratings mentality. We'll play a murder up high and really go after it because we think it'll get us an audience or get us ratings, and that may dictate sometimes how the news plays or what stories we pick.
Did you get a chance to see about a week ago, there was Eye on the Media, the CBS thing where they brought Rather and Wallace?
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
I taped that, and I had a chance
Excellent
to look.
show.
Excellent show. Because I think for the first time, well, I don't know if it was the first time, but at least that lawyer really made the point that maybe the boys were doing a number on business people of the type that they themselves wouldn't like done on them.
Yeah.
And also, when the guy from the New York Times, no, the Wall Street Journal, they asked him, do you think that 60 Minutes is good journalism? And he said, he laughed, and then he said, well, I think it's great entertainment and very dramatic, good drama, but it certainly is not good journalism. And Mike Wallace said, I can't believe you're saying that. It was like a traitor in our midst.
On the 60 Minutes issue, I kind of agree to an extent. I think it is real good television, therefore it's good entertainment. That show's been on the air a long time.
Yeah, number one
and it
rating.
didn't get to be number one until they started to play around with the format a little bit and sort of juice it up with those ambush interviews that they became famous for, which they've started to get away from. I do think it is good journalism sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends. I don't think it's great journalism, but sometimes it does a better job than it's given credit for. I think when you're talking about the way media covers business, you got to remember there's a real history in this country, a populist mentality where you don't like the big guy. And so business is always, I mean, the average man has always been sort of notoriously suspicious of business. And that's sort of fed by
Well,
I
I claim that goes back to the press, the early days in the print media as medium, as well as the broadcast, which they've sort of inherited. But I think part of it has to do with the same thing why teachers many times hate business people.
Yeah.
It's because they can go to the Rotary Club, they're probably both equally well educated, but when they leave the meeting, the businessman goes in the Mercedes, and myself as a teacher, I hop in my little Escort and go home.
Or
and
my rusted out Aspen in my course.
An Aspen?
In my case, yes.
What's an Aspen?
Dodge.
Oh, it's a Dodge. Okay, just so it's a Dodge.
It's a Dodge. I buy
It's foreign cars.
No.
Okay.
None of that.
But I think that's part of that mentality that people get angry at. Quite frankly, I have a lot of problems with our local media. I think they're arrogant. Yeah, I think they come on like they're God's gift or whatever, and I don't believe that.
Print and
they bring these gypsies in. What do you
gypsies?
Do you think that's proper? These mannequin gypsies? These guys that come in from New York, and this guy, what's this guy on 4? The one that I claim sits on a telephone book.
Mortgrim?
Mortgrim.
He was born in Illinois, for Christ's sake.
Well, okay, he's from Illinois, right?
Not from New York.
But he comes in as though he's an expert on Detroit. What right does he?
I think there's I have a cynicism about the way they take the city wherever they happen to be to their bosom and immediately say go for it, we're for Detroit.
It's not honest.
Or Channel 2 right now.
Why don't you bang them in your column on that?
I do. They get kidded for it, but that's the way the business is. Let's face it.
Yeah, but you're the print media. You ought to be pointing that out to every reader, saying, "Hey, look, this guy doesn't know Detroit. They can spend $200,000. Mike Duffy, they can spend $200,000, but that doesn't mean he knows Detroit."
You can go anywhere in the country, and that's. I think there's a real Detroit hometown mentality.
Just because a kid's doped down in Florida, it has no difference. Has no difference in here.
Okay, come on, be quiet. Let me say something here.
Okay.
What is this? Come on. Okay, anyhow, I agree with you. I think
You're a neat guy.
There is definitely a tendency for them to play to that mentality. Oh, we love Detroit, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of these people are...
can hardly wait to get out.
Well, if they're young reporters...
hardly wait to get out.
They're like looking at a bigger market.
Didn't Mike Wallace send his kid down here to haunt us for a while? And Joe Gavilaloli, or whatever his name is?
I don't remember. I wasn't covering TV then. Who?
What's his name?
Who are you talking about?
No, I believe
Steve Gargiulo.
Isn't that the big
Steve
shot?
Gargiulo's a nice guy. Come on.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, but the point is that his papa...
What about the industries in town that transfer people in, and you're saying they shouldn't be here because they just weren't born in Detroit?
But they're bringing us our perception of the world. There's a little bit different, our product and our perception, because whoever controls that editing room, as was pointed out on that 60 Minutes, and a credit to CBS, because I think they're the most liberal of the networks. I give them credit for putting it on. But they view the world. Whoever controls this camera, my director
My editor,
Yeah.
my producer can control how we come off on the show. If they want to take all my craziness out, I can be most reasonable fella sitting here doing a nice interview.
Yeah, but there's in this country, we hope there's a built-in responsibility that you're supposed to exercise there.
I hope so. I don't see much of it in the media.
I think channels 2, 4, or 7, if you go around the country and look at local TV news, channels 2, 4, and 7 stack up real well compared to a lot of, in terms of, and I'll forget
They're paying you off?
No. I think
They give you a free trip?
No, we don't take that stuff. The Free Press pays if I'm going to go on a trip somewhere.
You took a tab from me, didn't you?
Jesus. Come on. I might have at one time compromised myself with a soft drink.
Okay.
But, I think they do, if we're talking about the product they put out. Granted, it is show business, but that's what it is. Part of it's journalism, part of it's show business. If you judge it from that standpoint, they do a relatively good job. Sure, I think there are abuses, but those abuses don't go to any kind of a conspiracy to mislead people.
I agree with you.
I really don't think that.
I don't think they sit up nights saying,
Heavens no.
Mislead. But I think through ignorance they do. And I think they have one...
Ignorance or through opportunism or whatever you want to call it, for expediency to get ratings sometimes when they're doing the news. You know, you only have 22 minutes there per half-hour show, and it's become a very sophisticated operation. It used to be 15 years ago, you'd have the anchorman sitting there, he'd basically literally just read the headlines of the day. Sometimes I think it's better.
The Canadians, I like
Canadian TV. And you know, you get an American TV executive will say, that's so boring, it's not, it just doesn't work, it doesn't play. And that's right, because it doesn't look good next to an American TV show, which is, there's all these whistles and bells
and fancy graphics.
All that stuff. And if you watch a Canadian TV...
Sellers on a...
Mal's sort of real old-fashioned, though, but they put him there with all that lights going off, and sort of, you forget that he's so boring. He's a real good meteorologist, but he doesn't. He doesn't play on TV.
That's right.
Now you would argue that he would fit in better on Canadian TV because it's very.
I like him.
It's one of the few
I like down there.
It's a very old-fashioned Channel 9. Say, for instance, their local news. They're very old-fashioned.
But I trust them.
Straightforward.
They don't
play. They don't play it up. They don't gimmick it up. And I agree with you.
Why don't you tell that to me?
I do. That's why I like Channel 4, which is the most old-fashioned of the three newscasts.
You think so?
Yeah, but it's still, they gimmick it up too, but I think they do the most down-to-earth. Now, you would say, oh, they're too liberal or something, or Mort Krim, something.
Well, the Washington Post, that makes them suspect.
My coffee.
Did we buy that for you?
Yes, you bought this for me. I've been compromised again. Here, I got my ethics right out the window.
I have a tab. Where's my tab?
Ethics right out the window.
I lost my tab.
Joe. But, you know, it's an interesting thing, the way they have developed over the last, say, decade in TV news in Detroit. It used to be, if you remember, Channel 4 back in when the Detroit News...
I worked there in the early days when...
Dr. Freddie Doors. Now, you talk about... now, you could not claim that he was handing out liberal pap.
No, but there was another guy, Paul Williams, who you look a little bit like.
I do?
Yeah, and he used to be an ex-tap dancer. He used to sit at one desk, and they had one little card, and they'd do the thing. And we got the news. We were informed. Yeah. In fact, I think we were better informed than having all these fancy people running around showbiz type.
Our I-team, and here's Mike Wendland, and here's our I-team follow-up.
We're going to investigate Mickey Mouse or something.
That
Does
kind
he
of
really
stuff.
live in sin with Minnie? I mean, come on. How much of that can we take?
Well, I think
but I like Bill Bonds. Now, why? Do you like Bill Bonds?
I think he's excellent at what he does. There's a reason.
Do you like him?
Do I like him? I don't know him personally. I don't try to get to know the people personally. Then I think it'll affect how I judge what they do on camera. On camera, he's the best at what he does in this town. He's the best anchorman.
I agree.
He plays well in Detroit. He owns Detroit. He's from Detroit. Now, there is a real sense in this city of feeling comfortable with someone that
You're a foreigner too, aren't you? You're from Ohio.
Yeah, but Ohio, come on. I'm from the Midwest. It's not like I came in from one of the coasts or something.
Is it true that Gideon uses you as a model for all his cartoons?
Oh, Gideon?
Gideon? Yeah.
Gideon, that's the Bible, you know the Bible.
Yes, thanks.
Yes, Gideon, I am one of the, I am like a model for the bag ladies. I dress up, I go in drag and carry bags around the office.
I oftentimes wonder, every time I see that, I say it's Duffy. It's Duffy.
Definitely a mentality.
He lives out in Grosse Pointe, doesn't he?
Ginden?
Yeah.
He does now, but he's trying to get out. Doesn't fit with his style, sort of, or his
What's cable going to do, in your mind, to all of this?
There's been a lot of blue sky theorizing, people saying, oh, doom and gloom on one hand, the broadcasters, the big networks saying, oh no, we're going to survive. I think the networks will survive. I think there is going to be a big challenge to network affiliates or to local stations, which will have to, like 2, 4, and 7, and you can see it happening now, they're going to have to make themselves more local.
That's right.
They're going to be offering, this, Channel 7 would argue that Good Afternoon Detroit is a local show.
Right.
It is from the standpoint that it's produced here. I think it's kind of...
Too slick.
No, it's real slick. It's good television, quotes around that, from the standpoint that it's well produced, but it's real superficial. But I think cable's going to force the local stations to be more local in their identity. Channel 7 doing that, Channel 2 doing their new logo, Detroit with the 2 as part of the O in Detroit. Have you seen that?
No, I watched the new.
Check it out. That's their new thing. We're, Detroit right in their logo now. And that's just a little icing on the cake. But I think it's going to force local stations to maybe preempt a little more of the network programming sometimes.
So that we can have some local programming.
Perhaps. I think that's one of the things that might happen.
I do, too. Or they may become, what about the idea that they may become the news producers for cable?
That could be possible, too, because they have all that stuff already in place. There's been an argument that NBC, why doesn't NBC, because they're so far behind in the ratings with the networks, just convert to an all-news format almost, all-news and information format, because they have all of that in place. I think that's a little silly. Cable, though, you got to realize, all of those network affiliates are on cable systems.
That's right.
So it's not like they're getting, it's not like they're being wiped out and
But the
nobody can get them.
competition, it's like a local newspaper now. In other words, I'm having Marianne the waitress on, or I had her on last week.
Sure, but right now, cable, you still turn those cable dials, there's a lot of empty channels yet.
Oh, yeah.
The big challenge in cable is the software to provide the programming, I think. I don't see right now, I mean, I get cable, and basically what you get, and when most people, consumers, buy cable, what they want, they say, oh, uncut movies, uninterrupted movies. That's the first big selling thing. Or something like an MTV, which is real big with a youth audience right now. All that, it's like video radio.
Do you think there'll be another competing network of MTV? Do you think somebody will come up with one?
With MTV?
With that type of...
It's hard to say. MTV is a big success, so the chances are someone will try to get in on that.
I've been trying
there's
to get
going to be a
W
country.
to do it.
There's going to be a Nashville network come out this spring.
Was that with the Group W people?
I think that's Warner. Is that Warner Amos?
That's on. It's Group W.
Group W.
The Disney thing with Warner, with Group W fell through.
Well, Disney's trying to do it on their own.
Right.
Anyhow, there's going to be a country western channel this spring sometime, and I think that'll go. It's going to be not just, they don't have country western videos too many, so it's going to be a lot of country western music, live shows, Grand Ole Opry, that kind of thing. I think you will see that stuff, but as far as wildly innovative programming, I haven't seen it yet. There's a lot of theorizing.
Did you see the show the kids did from here?
Yeah, that was good. Yes.
Did you like that? Why Be Something You're Not, the punk show?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. The public access and local programming thing, though, is still at the real ground floor in the Detroit area. I mean, it's really just in the scratching the surface. Yeah, you have to go to some, up East Lansing's pretty interesting because they've had cable for quite a long time.
And you get a real wide variety of programming coming on.
And that shows you the potential for it.
And that's what's fun about it.
Exactly. But in terms of...
we're both burping. You burped.
I know, I just burped. Isn't that fun, folks? Isn't that good man?
You got Duffy burping on camera.
I realize this is
all
being...
we need.
Can you blow your cover here and tell them your tape
I don't even know
Saturday morning?
I don't even know you.
Okay.
The cover, can't they tell? It's the same shirt. The tie changes.
Okay. Well, what's next? We lost the track.
No, it's time.
It's time to stop?
It's time to stop.
I don't want to stop.
Well, we can
Let's
go
for another half hour.
You want to go for another half an hour?
I want to run for 10 times in Dearborn next week or something.
Well, listen. No, I want you to come back. I love people to come back. And
I'll do that sometime.
It's sort of fun talking with you. I want you to do a thing. You've never done anything on the punk thing, though. Kids doing punk television and this stuff.
Punk television.
You've never written anything about it.
Written anything about it. Look,
come on,
you got to realize
that
I have a responsibility to 600,000 or more readers, not to just the ones in Dearborn.
No. If you only enlighten one person, one little candle.
God, I love this. You're the Bill Buckley of the West Side.
I know. Southside Dearborn.
Southside Dearborn.
Listen,
okay.
I got to go. Mike Duffy, Detroit Free Press. Thank you.
Peace.
I'll be back right after this. Mike Duffy, Detroit Free Press. Read him every day. He's a good guy. Hey, for those of you who took time to view the show, thank you. For those of you that took time to drop me a card or a letter, I say thank you. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for just being you. Russ Gibb at random.